Jimmy Fallon was asking Linda Stevens about her miraculous recovery from heart failure when something in her expression suddenly shifted. The 48-year-old woman, who had been describing her newfound energy and health moments before, placed her hand over her chest and began to cry. "Jimmy," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "this heart doesn't belong to me. It belongs to a 17-year-old boy named Jake, who will never see his 18th birthday." The Tonight Show studio, which had been celebrating her successful transplant surgery, fell into stunned silence. Linda's confession transformed what had seemed like a medical miracle into something much more profound and heartbreaking. Jimmy's celebratory expression shifted to one of deep emotion as he realized this wasn't just a story of survival, this was a story of sacrifice and love that transcended death. It was April 8th, and Linda had come on the show to discuss organ donation awareness and her second chance at life. The interview had been going beautifully, with Linda sharing her journey from near death to vibrant health. But when Jimmy asked what it felt like to have a new heart, something inside her broke open. "Jake Thompson died in a motorcycle accident 14 months ago," Linda continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "His parents made the decision to donate his organs while he was on life support." The words carried the weight of a family's ultimate sacrifice in their darkest hour. The studio fell into complete silence. Jimmy's face showed a mixture of awe and profound sadness. The audience seemed frozen, confronted with the reality that Linda's miracle had come at the cost of unimaginable loss for another family. "How do you know about Jake?" Jimmy asked gently, his voice full of compassion and curiosity. "Do transplant recipients usually know their donors?" His questions reflected the mystery that surrounds organ transplantation for most people. "Usually no," Linda explained, wiping tears from her eyes. "But Jake's mother, Patricia, reached out through the organ procurement organization." Her voice broke as she spoke about the connection that had formed between grieving mother and grateful recipient. "She wanted to meet me," Linda continued, describing the courage it took for both women to face each other. "She said she needed to know that her son's heart was still beating." The maternal need to maintain connection with her child was both heartbreaking and beautiful. Jimmy leaned forward in his chair, completely absorbed by this extraordinary story. "What was that meeting like?" he asked carefully. Understanding this was sacred territory for both families involved. "The most beautiful and devastating moment of my life," Linda replied, her description capturing the complexity of their encounter. "Patricia put her ear to my chest and listened to Jake's heart. The image of a mother listening to her dead son's heartbeat was almost too powerful to contemplate. We both cried for 20 minutes, she continued, painting a picture of shared grief and gratitude. She told me Jake wanted to be a paramedic, that he always wanted to save lives. The irony that his death had indeed saved lives wasn't lost on anyone listening. The audience was completely silent now, understanding they were witnessing something that transcended television entertainment. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was a testament to the profound connections that can form between strangers united by tragedy and hope. The cameras captured every emotion crossing Linda's face. "What did you say to her?" Jimmy asked softly, his voice thick with emotion. Linda's response revealed the impossible weight of carrying someone else's child's heart. "I promised her I would take good care of Jake's heart," she said, the vow sacred and binding. "I told her that her son would live on in me." The responsibility she felt was evident in every word. "But the hardest part," Linda continued, her voice growing smaller, "was when she asked me if I could feel him." The question touched on mysteries of consciousness and connection that science couldn't explain. Behind the scenes, producers were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't entertainment. This was a profound exploration of love, loss, and the miraculous ways humans connect with each other. They recognized the importance of letting Linda's story unfold naturally. "Can you?" Jimmy asked, his curiosity genuine and respectful. "Can you feel Jake?" Linda paused for a long moment, clearly considering how to explain something inexplicable. "Sometimes I dream about riding motorcycles," she said, describing experiences that seemed to come from beyond her own memory. I've never been on a motorcycle in my life. The suggestion that memories or experiences could transfer with organs was fascinating and mysterious. And I have these sudden cravings for foods I've never liked, she continued, listing other changes she'd noticed. Jake's mom told me he loved spicy food. I never could tolerate it before. The personality changes some transplant recipients report added another layer of mystery to her story. Jimmy made a decision that would define this moment. He stood up from behind his desk and walked over to sit next to Linda, abandoning the traditional interview setup. "Linda, that's incredible," he said gently. "You're living with part of someone else's soul." "That's how it feels," Linda agreed, looking directly at him. "Like I'm not just carrying his heart, but carrying his spirit." Her description touched on beliefs about consciousness and identity that went far beyond medical science. "Patricia and I have become like family," she continued, describing the bond that had formed between the women. "She calls me on Jake's birthday, and I visit his grave with her." The rituals they'd created helped both women maintain connection with Jake's memory. "What does his father think about all this?" Jimmy asked, understanding that grief affects family members differently. Linda's expression showed both understanding and sadness. "He couldn't handle meeting me," she admitted, revealing the different ways people cope with loss. "Patricia says seeing me is too painful for him." The varying responses to her existence highlighted the complexity of their situation. "But Jake's younger sister, Emma, has been amazing," Linda continued, sharing the positive connections that had emerged. "She says it's like having a part of her brother back." The teenage girl's acceptance provided hope in an otherwise devastating situation. The vulnerability Linda showed in sharing these intimate family dynamics was extraordinary. Jimmy reached over and gently placed his hand on her arm. "How has this changed how you live your life?" "I live for two people now," Linda said with conviction that was both inspiring and heavy. "Everything I do, I think about whether Jake would be proud." The responsibility of honoring someone else's life was enormous, but seemed to give her purpose. "I started volunteering with motorcycle safety programs," she continued, describing how she'd turned tragedy into advocacy. "If I can prevent one accident, maybe Jake's death will save even more lives." Her commitment to preventing similar tragedies was remarkable. "And I became an organ donation advocate," she added, using her experience to help others. "I want people to understand what an incredible gift this is." Her perspective from both the recipient and donor family sides was unique and valuable. The audience was visibly moved by Linda's story, many people crying as they imagined themselves in either family's situation. Her experience was creating space for thinking about mortality, legacy, and the connections that bind us together. "What would you say to people who are considering becoming organ donors?" Jimmy asked, recognizing that Linda's words could literally save lives. Linda looked directly into the camera before responding. "That you have the power to be someone's miracle," she said with absolute conviction. "One person can save up to 8 lives through organ donation." Her statistics were powerful, but her personal testimony made them real. "Jake saved 4 people," she continued, expanding the scope of his impact. "His kidneys went to a father of 3, his liver to a college student." The ripple effects of one family's generosity were staggering to contemplate. "And his corneas gave sight to 2 people who had been blind," she added, completing the picture of Jake's legacy. A 17-year-old boy became the hero for 6 families. Her reframing of his death as heroic rather than tragic was beautiful. "What would you want to say to Jake, if you could?" Jimmy asked, understanding that Linda carried messages she might never be able to deliver. Her response was immediate and heartfelt. "Thank you," she said simply, the words carrying the weight of gratitude for life itself. "Thank you for giving me the chance to see my grandchildren grow up. The specific dreams now possible because of his sacrifice made the gift concrete. And I'm sorry your dreams didn't get to come true," she continued, acknowledging the loss that made her life possible. "But I promise to live big enough for both of us." Her commitment to honoring his unlived life was both beautiful and heartbreaking. The studio erupted in applause, but it wasn't celebratory. This was recognition of sacrifice, gratitude for generosity, and awe at the connections that can form between strangers. The standing ovation lasted several minutes, with many people openly weeping. "Do you stay in touch with the other recipients?" Jimmy asked, wondering about the community that had formed around Jake's legacy. Linda's face lit up with genuine joy. "We have reunions," she said, describing gatherings that sounded almost magical. "Patricia calls us Jake's family. The expansion of family beyond blood relations was beautiful and healing. Last Christmas, we all met at Jake's grave," she continued, painting a picture of love transcending death. 6 people whose lives he saved, all together honoring him. The ritual they'd created was both heartbreaking and hopeful. They talked for a few more minutes about organ donation, about the importance of having conversations with family about these wishes, and about the unexpected ways love can multiply even in the face of devastating loss. Linda was more inspiring and profound than any celebrity who had sat in that chair. When the interview ended, something remarkable happened. Viewers began calling organ donation hotlines immediately. Within hours, over 10,000 people had registered as organ donors. Linda's story had literally created the potential to save thousands of lives. "I can't believe this response," Linda told Jimmy backstage, overwhelmed by the immediate impact. Jake would be so proud. Her connection to the boy whose heart she carried remained the lens through which she viewed everything. The episode aired exactly as it happened, with Linda's story resonating far beyond entertainment. Organ donation organizations reported unprecedented interest, and families began having conversations about donation that might never have happened otherwise. Within weeks, Linda had been invited to speak at medical conferences and organ donation events. Her unique perspective as someone connected to both the donor and recipient experience made her a powerful advocate for the cause. "You've given Jake's story wings," Patricia told Linda after the show aired. "More people will be saved because of what you shared." The multiplication of her son's impact through storytelling was something no mother could have anticipated. The Tonight Show established regular segments about organ donation directly because of Linda's appearance. They featured stories of donors, recipients, and families, always emphasizing the life-saving potential of this ultimate gift. Jimmy learned something profound that April night that changed how he thought about the stories people carry. "I realized that sometimes the most important person in the room is someone who isn't there," he reflected later. Jake was present in every word Linda spoke. Linda Stevens' organ donation story became more than a viral moment. It became a catalyst for conversations about mortality, generosity, and the unexpected ways love can multiply even after death. Her testimony gave thousands of people the courage to become donors. The ripple effects continued for years. Organ donation rates increased significantly, partly attributed to the emotional impact of Linda's story. Medical ethicists began studying the psychological connections between donors and recipients, and families found new ways to honor their loved ones' legacies. Years later, Linda would say that meeting Patricia was as important as receiving Jake's heart. "She didn't just give me her son's organ," she reflected. "She gave me the responsibility to live a life worthy of his sacrifice. That's a gift you can never repay, only honor." The lesson of that extraordinary April night was profound. Love doesn't end with death, and sometimes the most beautiful connections form between people who will never meet. In Linda's chest, Jake's heart continued to beat. Proof that life, love, and hope can triumph even over death itself.